Hello, this is Photography Gamer. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm reviewing Unto the End for Microsoft Windows via Steam. The game is also available for the PS4, Nintendo Switch and Xbox One. Unto the End is a side-scrolling combat adventure game developed by 2 Ton Studios. The game sees you assume control of a nameless character on a road trip through harsh landscapes as you attempt to return home to your family. The game features 2 modes, Adventure and Permadeath, with Adventure being probably the best option to go for first. So what is the game like to play? Well, in the brief prologue you say farewell to your family and head off into the wilderness. The game doesn't really tell you why, where you're going, or for what reason. So with no real story to pursue, it's a case of moving onward into the cold and dark landscape. There aren't any tips, pointers, go here arrows. The game really just lets you figure things out for yourself. It's a very minimalistic experience with no on-screen HUD during most of the gameplay, and after a little bit of exploration you will encounter your first hostiles. Now, combat in Unto the End is pretty simple in terms of controls. You can attack high or low and block high and low. If you match your opponent's moves, then you'll block them. Attack them in the opposite area of their guard and you will get a clean hit. You can also duck, roll and use a body check. So it might sound pretty easy to win a fight. Wrong. It's not so easy to predict your enemy's moves, and duels can go on for some time, with block after block slowly building the tension in some epic confrontations. One other factor to consider is that you can drop your torch and sword. The caves are so dark, without light you're a dead man, and drop your sword mid-fight and you're in for a real tense session of spamming the roll button until you can gather your sword once more. Thankfully the game features a sparring mode which acts as a flashback to a happier time hanging out with your family. But even in sparring you realise Unto the End is not a simple combat game. You know, when your wife kicks your ass in a sword fight, you know it's going to be a rocky road. I'd say the combat excels in one-on-one situations, making for tense and exciting exchanges. But when you're facing 2 or 3 foes simultaneously, problems do start to arise. Being a 2D game, it means you can only go one way or the other, and if you've got enemies on both sides, it does render the up and down blocking kind of redundant. You end up having to just spam the roll button again until you get one of the enemies with a clean shot, then repeat that process. It's almost like 2 completely different games in that way, with one-on-one duels being amazing and the group situations being quite tiresome and frustrating. Add to that the bleeding damage and you need to be prepared to die a lot here. You'll be repeating the same fights over and over, and I'd say for some gamers that might be a little bit of a turn-off. Also, the save points do seem quite erratic. Sometimes it saves regularly, then at other times you'll have a number of different fights to win before you can reach a checkpoint, but it's never really clear when that is. In terms of weapons, your sword is your bread and butter, but you can collect other ones as you progress. Campfires offer you an opportunity for respite where you can upgrade your armor, heal your wounds, or craft a special tonic. Enemy variety is okay, with general foot soldiers, large behemoths, and wild warriors with deadly spears. You'll also have to deal with deadly traps and falling boulders along the way too. Graphically, the game has a lovely art style with soft pastel shades, minimalistic visuals, and a beautiful world to explore. As I said, there is no constant HUD, which really helps you immerse into the game world. The interior cave sections do, however, pose somewhat of a dilemma, as they're very dark and have foreground objects obscuring your view from time to time. Generally, that isn't a problem, but during sword fights it can be incredibly annoying and would have perhaps been better used on the exploration sections only. One other minor issue were the falling boulders, which killed me several times despite them not actually landing on me. The sound work in Unto the End is absolute perfection. The beautiful musical score, the impactful combat effects, and the subtle ambient sounds. Each part of that audio accentuates the experience, and the developers clearly have got a very good ear for sound and music matching. Okay, what's good and what's bad? What's good? The art style is gorgeous and atmospheric, the sound is flawless, it's a very immersive experience due to no persistent HUD, and the combat has some truly tense and exciting one-on-one duels. What's bad? The story is threadbare, the game ends just as it starts to get going, the 2D nature of the game makes group combat very frustrating, as does the foreground obstructions during cave combat. And despite the combat system being simple and deliberate, on occasions it does more harm than good to the overall gameplay experience. So, what's the verdict? Until the End is a bit of a struggle for the first couple of hours, but after that it's a much more enjoyable adventure. It's just a shame that by the time you start to enjoy it, the game ends. It's pretty difficult to like for the first hour or two despite its pleasant and atmospheric facade. There is enjoyment to be had in Unto the End, but barring the inconsistent combat scenarios, there isn't a great deal in the way of gameplay. The platforming sections are few and far between, and the game could have done with some more tangible gameplay aside from combat, like puzzles, narrative, and other such elements. It's in the aesthetics where the game truly shines. The art style is superb, but for me, it was the audio that reached heights that the gameplay was sadly unable to reach. So in summary, Unto the End is a solid indie adventure game with a beautiful game world, excellent sound work, and a combat system that falls a little short of the mark. Would I recommend it? Well, I'd say if you have the patience to deal with the combat, you'll get some enjoyment from it. But it's a very short experience and doesn't really offer any tangible replay value at present. So I'd recommend it for a weekend experience, but nothing more than that. One other thing I'd like to see added would be a couch co-op dueling mode where two players could face off, as the combat really does excel in one-on-one situations, and that would definitely add some replay value. So my score for Unto the End is 7.4 out of 10. Okay, that was the review. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. This is Photography Gamer signing off. Thank you.